everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Deep Thoughts. And today we're talking about Dr. Stone, episode 14, Master of Flame. Now, before we begin, though, I do want to give a big thank you to my boy @ShonenOG over on Twitter for sharing last week's video. And hey, if you would like to have your name shouted out in next week's Dr. Stone video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's Dr. Stone video. And with that said, we're going to go ahead and jump into this week's episode. Dr. Stone has reached episode 14. We are into the second core at this point and pretty much wrapping up everything that, the whole story basically up until now. And there's two things I want to talk about in particular when it comes to this week's episode. Well, technically three. I want to talk about the new OP and ED, and I want to talk about the miniature tournament arc. Now, I'm going to go ahead and save the OP and ED for towards the end of the video so that we can go ahead and dig into this mini tournament arc. And the way this thing starts off is pretty intense. I'm a big Kinro guy. I think I mentioned in last week's video that Kinro immediately shot up to being one of my favorites in the show based solely on how they wrote and weaved in his whole being nearsighted into the whole arc of the tournament arc. Count how many times I say arc in this video. But I thought it was a pretty good twist when it is challenged about how this might be interfering from the outside, since we saw it last week as well. Again, they Chekhov's gunned the hell out of this thing by cleverly letting the audience know, hey, outside interference is banned and thus would result in a loss. But, as the referee points out, like, technically, it wasn't thrown at Magma, it was thrown to Kinro. So it's not exactly against the rules, and Kinro's like, alright, sweet. But since we know that Kinro is, of course, by the book, when Magma's the one who suggests it, you kind of know something's about to go down, and Magma straight up cold cocks our boy in the back of the head. And it looked brutal. The only issue I had with this whole tournament arc thing was that we didn't really get to see a whole lot of fighting. Now, in any other tournament arc, that would be blasphemous. But with Dr. Stone, we've kind of come to realize that it's more about looking pretty than it is about moving pretty, because the animation in the show just really isn't there. Now, again, it doesn't necessarily hurt the episode overall, but it is sort of a bummer, because I would have liked to have actually seen, like, Magma bring the hammer down, as it were, and crack Kinro in the back of the head. I wouldn't have liked to have seen it, but it would have made that scene a little bit more impactful if we actually saw the moment of impact. And that is how the show seems to get around the action scenes, is that they'll cut away to other characters. And we see that not only here, but also we see that with Ginro later on in his fight, and we see that in Chrome versus Magma. Now, the whole Chrome versus Magma thing, I actually was sort of spoiled on, but that's my own fault. I was on YouTube after the episode dropped, and that's always been something that I tell people, like, not to do. If you're keeping up with the show and you know the episode dropped, then you shouldn't go on YouTube. And I saw all the thumbnails of Chrome holding his arm up, so I was like, oh, okay, so Chrome's definitely gonna fight Magma. So that was on me. So I don't really blame anybody else but me on that one. The only other thing I think of this episode that bugged me is the Kohaku thing. As things start to sort of fall apart for our group, of course, we see Kinro go down. We find out that Chrome has to go up against Magma. We find out that Kohaku is too late to get back. And in that moment, I was like, okay, well, that's not exactly Kohaku's fault. Like, she had an assumption. She acted on it. She didn't want to run the risk of Suika being in danger, even though it was really clearly and obviously a lie. Now, that's where my problem is, because even Kohaku knew it is very clearly a lie, but she just wanted to double check, and I don't fault her for doing that. On like the 1 millionth off chance that she got it wrong, then she wouldn't be able to live that down. I get it. But when she returns to the camp, they have this like embrace, and like the two start crying. They're like, oh, I'm so glad you're okay. And I was like, I'm pretty sure Kohaku knew like everything was fine last week, and we're having this big moment. Like, I get that these two are friends, and the mere concept of one being dead or in danger is obviously scary, but to get that emotional over it, I was like, okay, that's very shonen-y. And this time I mean that as kind of a negative, because it's like, well, you knew she was fine, and we knew she was fine. Like, everybody knew she was fine. We knew, Senku knew, you knew, everybody knew. is all good. I thought that was a little silly. But hey, if that's one of like only 2 complaints I had for the episode, you can tell that I really enjoyed it overall, especially the return of my main man Gen at the 11th hour as Chrome goes up against Magma. Now that was some intense stuff, especially the fact that Magma is like laying into Chrome. Now again, part of me wishes we had seen it. Another part of me wishes that, or is glad rather that we didn't, because I don't want to see Chrome get the ever-loving hell knocked out of him, because it looked painful, and I'm glad I didn't have to see it. Magma truly is a force of nature, but again, he's just kind of that. Like, even by the end of this, I remember people saying, like, no, Magma will grow on you. Well, it's been a couple episodes now, and the man certainly hasn't. But he's not supposed to. To me, he's just sort of an obstacle in the way, and that's perfectly fine given the circumstances, given, like, the setup of the arc. It makes more sense for him to be an obstacle than an actual character, at least right now. And seeing him just power through Kinro and Chrome Kinro's a little bit more impressive. Chrome, we kind of knew he would get his ass kicked because that's just not who Chrome is. However, with the help of both Senku and Gen and Chrome's tenacity, as he keeps pointing out, he actually manages to become the scientist victorious. Gen in particular basically plays like MVP to the nth degree, and his mentalist prowess, his ability to make people think something that is obviously untrue, came in handy big time as he actually confronts Magma like from atop the building, which I don't know how he got up there that quickly, but it doesn't matter because it was cool. And him confronting Magma saying like, hey, thanks for killing me the other day, by the way. That was super cool. And Magma and his flunky are like, how'd he get up there? That was such a boss shot. And again, basically just trying to pull his best like shonen-y, like, this is my superpower, I put a curse on you to make your heart stop. It was really genuinely pretty funny and cool, and yet at the same time very Gen, and it totally works. And even with Chrome saying like, oh, I'm too scared to move, like, we know why he's not moving. But it was super well handled in my opinion, and led up to one of my favorite, like, not said sort of subtext moments of the episode, and that's when Chrome realizes that he has to hold steady if he's gonna actually set Magma on fire, and the only way he can think to steady himself as he's freaking out, he's hurt, he's scared, and he can't stop shaking, because he's not only scared, but again, he's beat up. When you're beat up, you tend to shake a little bit, because it's, you just took a beating, your body's trying to react, and it doesn't know what to do. So of course he's scared and he's nervous, and he can't help but try to, like, he has to try to steady himself, and the first thought he has is of Ruri and protecting Ruri, and he's got to do this for her. But to me, what I thought was really solid subtext was the fact that Ruri is his rock, and Ruri is what keeps Chrome steady, like, not just in this moment, but in life. Like, she's what keeps him on the right track, what keeps him steady, quote unquote, what keeps him right. And I thought that was really, really cool, and I really dug that a lot. And yeah, of course, seeing Chrome win was friggin' really satisfying, and I was glad that my boy got a victory. He got a W under his belt. I dug that. Chrome is a top tier boy. Now he is still not my toppest tier of the side characters. Alas, that is still, believe it or not, Taiju and Yuzuriha.
After all this time? Always.
Okay, not really, but I did need a segue into the second thing I want to talk about in this week's episode, and that being the new pair of OP and ED that we get in this week's episode. Now, what you're seeing in front of you is actually from the ED, but I just like this shot a lot, so I'm going to use that while I talk about both the OP and the ED. Now, with the OP, the biggest takeaway for me was seeing Taiju and Yuzuriha. I miss these two like crazy, so every time we get a hint or a nod towards them, it makes me happy. Now, I am curious as to why they're standing in front of a like wooden cross. Like, I don't know if maybe like someone that they know in the Tsukasa camp like passes away to protect them, or somebody dies on their watch, or if that's meant to be for Senku. Actually, the more I think about it, it's definitely meant to be for Senku, because they're still under the assumption that Senku died, or at least Tsukasa's under the assumption that Senku died, even though I don't really believe that he believes that. It's a whole thing. But the more I think about it, yeah, as I'm saying this, I realize it's probably for Senku, but it's a damn cool shot nevertheless. But between the OP and the ED, I was personally more moved, I guess, by the ED. I actually really like the sort of coloring book style, given that it's meant to be more from the younger Senku's perspective than the current Senku. So seeing it in sort of this like crayon style was really neat. I thought it really fit that moment, and it also served to show us what Senku's dad meant to him, and also makes me question if maybe like this is Senku like cause when his dad like turns around to give him like to offer him a hand, but then it goes to like it fades to white and Senku doesn't reach his dad in time. I don't know if that's meant to signify that his dad was turned to stone with everybody else and Senku just misses him, or if maybe Senku's old man passed away before the petrification. So either way, a lot of strong emotions there. I want to learn more about Senku's dad. He seems like a really dope dude, so I would like to learn more about him in the future. And yeah, I actually really like this ED more than the first. Is it as fun as the last ED song? No, but the visuals are cooler and I like that a little bit more for this ED. And yeah, I enjoyed both a great deal. And to wrap up my thoughts, I'm gonna give this week's episode a rank of B. I thought this was a solid B tier episode. It has a few things that sort of rub me the wrong way, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I love these characters, so I'm just kind of down to see whatever misadventures they get up to, whatever obstacles they can overcome. Always happy to be watching Dr. Stone. But before we go, as always, I have to give a special shout out to the good folks over on Patreon, namely those in the Earl Grey tier. Calvin Atkinson, Crowbar of Irony, Dominic, Urza, Ginkotaku, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Mirth Mouser, Omner Garamond, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Steven, Tristan, and Veridin. Thank you all so much for your continued support over on Patreon. It is super appreciated, and if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then by all means go ahead and check out the first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get over there, as well as access to our Patreon exclusive Discord. And on that note, everybody, that's going to be a video, so I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and if you did, you've probably been on the internet long enough to know what to do already, so I ain't going to tell you, but I will say that it is appreciated, and if you are feeling stressed out today, then you go have yourself a warm cup of tea, and I'll talk to you all again real soon.